I always love to discuss research writing, thesis writing with all the research scholars who are very enthusiastic to initiate their journey, to commence their beautiful journey towards the quest of something unknown, but something that is in your mind with a target, goal-oriented plan. So today we practically will be discussing how your target achievement has to be very well planned, goal oriented altogether. At the same time, how you can do the focus study and how that study plan, the itinerary of the study plan can be well articulated, well crafted also. So we will be discussing basically about designing a very well planned research study in order to reach to our ultimate goal and fulfill the objectives of the studies those are at the hand. So basically, let's first start discussing about what is research. As the word itself suggests, searching something again in order to find out something new in it. Now, this newness is very important. Why? Because when we consider something that is really worth of calling it as a research. So research is something investigating with some objective at the hand, with a very proper plan, and you should have a target also decided where you want to reach. At the same time, when you want to reach there, your whole path has to be very well designed. At the same time, the steps those you are going to take also has to be well decided, pre-decided, I mean. Why these things are important? If you want to execute a successful study, then this well planning, well designing is highly essential. So our research practically is very goal oriented. It is very well crafted plan. At the same time, there is a very essential thing under research is there should happen some contribution. Contribution either to completely a newness of the knowledge, that is innovation, what is we call, or a discovery, that is finding out something with a very different perspective. For example, some other person might have worked on it, but now you have found some new angle to the same study, or you might have proved the conclusion of the previous study as wrong, and you have come out with some different theory altogether. At the same time, research also understands contributing something extra in the flow of the existing knowledge. Not necessary that every time your research has to be augmentative. It can also be supportive. It can also be an addition. It can also be complementary, and it can also be argumentative, or it can also be something completely new. So research, after all, expect a contribution from a research scholar. Though you write a piece of a paper in the research form, or you write a lengthy piece of write-up, that is thesis, your contribution should highly beneficial to a larger community, a larger mass of audience. Only then your contribution is going to be considered. Please note my words, those I am using here again and again. Newness, contribution, benefit to the larger mass. We will be discussing that again in the next slide. Before that, we'll first discuss what is this thesis writing after all. So thesis is a very lengthy piece of write-up that is usually submitted in order to fulfillment of your master's degree or bachelor's degree in some cases, or might be for your doctoral studies. Might be in the form of even MPhil or PhD. So this is a larger piece of writing based on one particular topic that at the hand with a problem statement, goal oriented, in order to reach to the solution of that particular issue or to the conclusion of certain argument. So this is what is research. So dissertation or thesis is a lengthy piece of academic writing based on original research that is submitted as a part of bachelor's, master's degree or MPhil or PhD degree. The structure of a thesis varies depending on your field, that is your subject of specialization and the stream that you have chosen. Practically, research chapters or research whole, your thesis is divided into 4 to 5 chapters, including introduction and concluding chapters altogether. It depends on the length of your study. In certain cases, chapter may exceed, like 7 or 8 chapters also may be included. If your research do has the necessary or asked for adding some appendices or some thorough analysis of the questionnaire or even the questionnaires, let's say, then you can make a separate section altogether, a chapter altogether to focus on only that particular area. So your chapter may exceed in that sense. So, for example, humanities do have a different kind of essay, thesis writing, that is in the form of long essay, developing an overall sense of argument revolving around the central thesis. The chapters are organized around diverse case studies, for example, or themes that can come under humanities. There is also a type of empirical research in the subjects like sciences or social sciences. The thesis is going to feature all the components that we are about to discuss below. That is in the next slide altogether. So in the empirical study, there is some evidence already available and you investigate more on that. You experiment more on that in order to reach to some new conclusion. So in certain cases, they are dealt in a separate chapter, while in others, we are required to combine them as per the requirement. So sometimes research sections are separately kept and discussion section separately happens. Or in certain cases, they do call it as a research discussions, and then they do have concluded chapter in which they add the findings of the study. So for example, in specific type of qualitative social sciences, the discussion as well as the results are woven together than being separately dealt. Now this is a basic understanding. You will get a more clarity on it when we will study the steps of the research writing in detail. So this is a general structure of any kind of research in any field with some pluses and minuses. There might be some additions and there can be some changes also. For example, there is an introduction, literature review, methodology of the study, research section, discussion and conclusion. This is how the research flows. Now, these are very crucial steps of research writing. That is my major intention here to discuss. Okay. Before that, I'll just help you to glance through what are these concepts, because we have to discuss all these concepts again in detail in next chapters altogether. So introduction is giving a detailing about your topic at the hand. In literature review, you survey relevant resources, articles, lectures, books, or even scholarly arguments based on your related to your topic, in order to see how your research is very relevant to other studies. At the same time, what are the gaps in the previous studies which are never made, and you are going to address those through your study. So this is the intention of the literature review. Now, methodology is the way of explanation or way of conducting study. You have to talk about the kind of methodology that you have chosen for your study. For example, qualitative, quantitative, field work, survey methods, and so on. Then research section is sort of overview of your whole study, and then it is followed by the discussion. In social sciences, both are interwoven together. So in the discussion section, you thoroughly discuss about various elements that you have observed and how they are impacting on your topic. And in the conclusion, you talk about the findings, major arguments, those you have made in order to contribute to the mainstream of the knowledge. These are highly essential steps that every research scholar must follow before starting writing thesis, during writing the thesis, and while compiling and submitting your thesis. So what is the research basically, and how a thesis writing has several expectations from the researcher? Let us first understand. Step one is to choose your research area very carefully. Do not just randomly get influenced by certain topic that you have overheard, eavesdropped, or just randomly read somewhere, because that's not going to help you out. Understand first your interest. If you are interested in that particular domain, only then you can take time to spend several next years to conduct that study, because thesis writing is a lengthy task. It is, especially if we consider for MPhil or PhD, then it consumes several years, around 3 to 5 years or 7 years and 8 years in some cases. So you understand you have to spend your next some prominent years of your life with one topic, and that topic has to interest you. Very important thing is it has to be very important to the wider academic community. Your contribution should be beneficial to the upcoming generations, at the same time existing ones, in order to be helpful in the academics. At the same time, even the other research scholars should also get benefit of your study in order to conduct their own research. So there should be some very concrete contribution from your side. Then opportunity to showcase your thoughts and ideas. Understand this is a platform to showcase your ideas and thoughts. So choose some topic which you think is really, really worthy to talk about, and which should be very relatable and useful to other people. The goal of your research or the topic of your research should be very achievable. Why? Because thesis writing is time framed. It does have duration. It does have deadline. For example, you can submit minimum from 3 years to maximum 5 years. Then with extension, in some cases, 6 years, 7 years. That is the max kind of duration any research work can offer. So understand your study is very time frame. So choose certain topic which should be in your limit, in the limit of time. Second thing, not only in the limit of time, it should also be in your capacity. How? For example, you are staying in India and you want to start talking about the population issues that the world is facing. Now, this is a very huge topic. You have to filter it down. You have to narrow it down, because you alone cannot complete the study of the population of every country that is going to be there in your study when you use the concept or terminology world. When you say world, you have to figure out and understand and study the population of each and every country. Is that in your capacity? It will be very difficult, because you have to rely on various sources for data collection. For example, if you even think about India, that is also going to be very vast for you, because India does consist several states. Again, every state does have several cities in it, which are again and there are multiple reasons which are again contributing into various population related issue. Might be decrease or increase in it. So you have to focus it out. For example, the population issue in the cities of Maharashtra with case studies to Pune or Mumbai. Okay, and you can even focus, make it more narrow, and you can talk about that the rise of population in the cities like Pune due to the employment issues or something like that. Or you can say that a case study, something like that. You can mention in that title. Now understand, when you narrow it down the topic, only then it will be in your capacity. You cannot be everywhere. Your data collection will consume a lot of time if you choose a very broad category. So you have to make sure that you should choose only limited and narrow topic. Now narrow doesn't mean that too brief, because you should have ample data to write in several pages. For example, 300 pages, right? Only then it will be called as a thesis. If your write-up finishes in just 20-30 pages, then it will hardly become a research paper and not a thesis, of course. So you have to understand what is the requirement of your subject, what is the requirement of your study. For that, every university does have a handbook. You have to undergo that handbook thoroughly. That is your step 2. But before going to step 2, there is one point that we have to discuss. Why is it important? Why your topic is important? You should be able to convince yourself first. Only then you are able to convince others. For example, if your topic is going to resolve some big issue that many people tried but couldn't resolve yet, then that will be a contribution from your side. Second important thing, for example, if your topic is going to be beneficial to the future generation, coming generation, then also that can be useful. So you have to identify the importance of the topic. It should not be just as you got interested in and you started doing the research. That won't help. So you have to understand it should be beneficial to the wider community. It should be in your capacity. It should be in the capacity of time also. So you can finish your study in time. So you can reach to some conclusion and understand. You should be able to express your ideas and thoughts through it. Now, second important step is examine what is expected before you start writing. For example, there are some ethics and protocols of doing the research, such as plagiarism. So you have your write-up has to be authentic, original work. It should not be a copy of someone, or it should not be data stealing of somebody else's study. For that, you have to abide by the ethics and the protocol of the study. Every university does have handbook, and every university does have different requirements also. For example, you belong to the domain of engineering, or you belong to the domain of humanities. Then not necessarily two different universities do have same norms. Every university do have separate expectations. For example, in certain universities, there is a compulsion that they should all add all kind of the rough data that they have used for their research, such as the questionnaire, handwritten if it is, or forms, interview forms if they have taken, or photographs. So everything can be added into appendices in that case. So you have to understand what are the things they are requiring. So you can start collecting those from the day one, start preserving those from the day one. Otherwise, what would happen? You will finish the data collection, then you can start analyzing data right in your thesis, and while submitting you will feel that okay, this is unnecessary and you may throw it out. It should not happen like that. Referencing style is another important factor that everybody must mind, because when we talk about research, referencing comes as a compulsory form. For example, whenever you cite a data, whenever you use a concept, you have to cite the resource of that concept, either in the footnote or under citation or at the end of the thesis, or even in the bibliography also. And there are certain styles of writing it. Even when you cite, you have to give numberings to various concepts those you are using, and you are going to refer it into citations or notations, or even in some cases references. Then those numbers also have to be written in the superscript. So these are small things, how a comma should be given, how can you write your definition, not, and how can you, edit and then format your page of research work. For example, 12 font times New Roman, 1.5 light spacing, thereafter margins, everything does have a fixed kind of guidance. So for that, what you have to do as a step one, once you get admission in the university, any university for your PhD work, you have to take the handbook of that university and start studying it thoroughly. Understand the requirements and the expectations of that university, and then abide by those. Follow those. Otherwise, your item will be a violation of the rules. Thereafter, you have to understand properly sorry, how the thesis is structured. Some university may ask you to do a chapterization according to certain norms. For example, I told you in the social sciences, they expect to add the result and discussion section in one. And then you can have conclusion section separate, in which you can add on the findings. But in other domains, it may be different. So for that also, the handbook will be helpful. If you fail to get any handbook or even ethics and protocol models, then what the best thing you can do is refer some previously submitted good thesis works of the previous scholars in your same department, and study the patterns of their writing, study the chapterizations, study how they have put the data, in which order, in what system, and then analyze that and then follow that. Let it reflect in your work also. Then what type of source materials are used? That also you have to be very well aware about. For example, let's say primary data, then secondary data. At the same time, if you are your study is dependent on somebody else's data. For example, I have taken a subject of understanding uh, the health issues in certain particular area or the tribal community. Now, when I'm saying about understanding health issues in one particular tribal community in the Gadchiroli district, Maharashtra, this is what is my research title. Okay, or investigating issues faced. Now, it won't be possible for me. I have two ways. I either have to go and visit the Gadchiroli district, and this is also a huge district in Maharashtra, and there might be several areas where this tribe is located. Okay, so I have to visit each and every place where this tribe is, and then I have to go and observe the health issues. At the same time, I have to check the previous records. I have to meet the doctors which go there for consultation. I have to find out the government hospitals nearby where this tribal people do visit. Or I also have to understand the surroundings which are causing several health issues in them. It's a very lengthy thing, right? But it may be possible that I won't be able to go on the field work due to my certain limitations and might be the time limit of my study. What I can do is I can rely on somebody else's reports then, or somebody else's study about it then. For example, government reports. Government has already conducted a survey in such area, and they have concluded some report, and that report is published on some government website, let's say. Then I can refer that. Or else, let's say some previous people have conducted some research based on the same thing, and they might have worked on some other issue, and in which they also had a question of health as one of the section in their questionnaire. And I can use that data as my source of study. So now my data is actually somebody else's collection altogether. I did not do it on my own, but that is also fair. You can always give a citation, but in various cases, when you are referring to the first author's material, you have to, by law, take the permission from that author. You have to write letters, or even you can meet, and then in written, you have to take the permissions of using the other person's data. But government official reports, you can definitely use, but in your bibliography, you have to cite that out. So you have to be aware about it. What forms of analysis are perceived as appropriate? This is also very important. Now, when I say about talk about style sheets, there are various style sheets, like style sheets of writing research work. For example, MLA, APA, Chicago, and many more, according to various norms altogether. So there comes the citation or style sheets guide books. So you have to first check with your department which style sheet do they recommend, because in humanities previously MLA was compulsory, but now some universities and some conferences are also recommending APA style sheet for humanities. Now you have to understand that, learn that style sheet and abide by that throughout your research writing. Now third step is have a clear goal and structure. Before you start writing your thesis, the first thing you have to do is you have to write a proposal. Okay, so proposal is a sort of an outline about what you are aimed at and how you have planned to structure it and what are you going to do through it. So these are certain things which are in the proposal stage. So in the proposal stage, you propose your study. You propose in front of the panel that you want to conduct this study. These are the objectives, these are the methodologies, and these are my intentions, and this will be the result. You have to convince there how your thesis or how your research is going to be useful or helpful, and who are the target audience for this, target receivers, let's say. So in the proposal stage itself, you have to very carefully craft it out. Reading and researching is very important throughout the research. Unless and until you read a lot, you cannot actually argue or write your proper statements, because reading gives you a very strong theoretical background. At the same time, understanding about various research gaps, and if your research is parallelly related to somebody else's work altogether. So for that, your constant research is very important. Before you start writing your thesis, do an ample research. in understanding the viewpoint of the previous scholars who have worked on the same topic. So that will give you a very good direction and a very good focus to reach to your goal and to reach to the conclusion also. At the same time, this particular researching will also give you ample data collection, which can be used as the theoretical background and in the literature review. Then comes structuring and restructuring. Understand, once you start writing, it doesn't become final at the first stage itself. It takes time. And it is whatever writing you do for the formal purpose, it should never be rather be finalized in one go. You always have to take a time to go through it once again, revise it, reread it, and if needed, restructure it. For example, let's say I have collected a data randomly. Then I have to do a brain mapping about what are the points I might be discussing in my topic. And according to that brain mapping, I have to start giving points on numbers to what will come first, then what will be followed. Might be point number 5 will go first. Point number 3 now will go second in the sequence. Point number 7 will go third. In this way, I have to sequence it out again. And then I have to start writing. Now, this drafting of the whole thesis and proofreading is very important. Whatever is your field, you have to make sure that you get proofread it at least from minimum from 3 people. Who are these 3 people? First, before you send it to your guide itself, first is you who have to proofread it. Second, you have to give it to your peer or colleague who understand your subject well, or you can even give to your senior teacher or some other person who is expert in that field to understand various concepts, arrangements, the way you have made arguments, if you have put it in a correct way or not. They will contribute in that. They will give you feedback about that. Then whatever language you are writing in, you have to get it proofread from the language expert in that field, because that person is going to give you the feedback related to grammatical accuracy. At the same time, syntactic and semantic corrections also. So this 3 proofreading has to be there before you give it to guide. Then guide will help you out to proofread it, and guide can give you some suggestions. According to that, you can make the final suggestions. Once again, share it with your guide. Guide will go through it again and give you the final green signal. Only then you are good to go for your final submission. Anyways, before you finally submit your thesis, you have to go for a pre-submission viva, which is the second final stage of your research, in which a departmental panel scrutinizes if your thesis is in capacity to be submitted in next few days. So they give you suggestions, they ask you for corrections, and then you have to make those corrections in next 3 months. And after 3 months, you can apply for or propose for the final submission call. In the final submission call, your final thesis is submitted on a certain day after scrutinizing if you have fulfilled all the requiring criteria by the governing departmental body. And then you can submit the pieces of your thesis, maybe 1 to the department, 1 to the guide, 2 to the PhD section, 3 to the PhD section. So 3 or 4 theses will be sent to various experts, 1 from your state and 2 from other states, or might be 2 in your state and 2 in other states. And then you have to wait for some next months to get a feedback report back from those experts. So once you get that feedback report from those experts, then your final viva is formed. In the final viva, the one who was on the expert committee, that person along with some other members come, and there happens a question answer round, your presentation of overall thesis, and then they declare you as a final they approve your final submission and they declare your PhD. So this is how this whole process happens. So understand these last 3 steps, like pre-submission viva, final submission, and then final viva. These 3 are very crucial steps. If you get stuck in that, then you will again get caught into the cycle of going for the whole academic year, or you have to keep repeating the many things again. if you have not taken care in these previous steps. So because of that, you have to be sure that you are following all the steps very carefully. You better invest more energy, more time in these steps, so your further unnecessary wastage of the energy will be saved. So step 4, write as you go. From day one itself, start writing it out. Keep a diary handy. Whenever you have some idea or a concept that comes in your mind, start writing it out. For example, I am reading a research paper of somebody else which is related to my study. Right now, while reading itself, I am highlighting some points and then I have to write the summary of it. Immediately, you have to note down uh, the citations like author, publication, year of publication, the place of publication, so on, which I can add into my bibliography. These are some highly essential things. So nowadays, you don't have to write on a piece of a paper. You can start creating different documents and give different titles. Create a folder itself where you can have you can give the name of PhD, rough work, final work, kind of another subfolders you can make in it, and then you can create a kind of document miscellaneous where you can start collecting all these other kind of write-ups, random this addresses from various websites those you are copying. So maybe some points are there which you want to read later, and if something is missed you can cross check it out. Okay, so check that you have addressed everything. Once you write down everything, cross check from your rough work that you have addressed each and every element there in your final work. Might possible there are some points which you have collected at the day one, or for in your data compilation, you are not going to use it 100% as it is. You are going to filter it out definitely. So might possible that 40% of the part was not useful. So you have to make sure that something important should not be missed. So for that, this cross check is very important. A list has to be made. Then frequent backup and research notes. As now most of us are working on digital platforms, we are typing on your computers at the same time working on Word for formatting and so on. And then if you are making various documents, then it may be possible that you may lose the track of it, or due to some electricity cut or some delete or something happens. So you better create some extra copies. What you can do is, as you go, write. As you finish writing, keep sending it on your email. CC to some of your really good friends in your circle. So they will also a backup file. So in case you lose something, you can ask or request them to send it back. So you will always have several backups of your one document. And you also have to make sure that you keep on having a research note. So in case you lose some data suddenly, then you can refer to those notes back and you can rewrite it. Keeping a track of your work is highly important. Understand this is something which is does not have a fixed syllabus, or it does not have the final end-term examination in the paper format. So you do not know how long it's gonna take. It's a very lengthy journey. So you have to keep motivating yourself. You have to keep track. There you are constantly working what you did. Understand, if you keep a long gap of month or 2 months or 3 months in your last study and next study, then you are definitely going to lose the track of what you thought last. And what you wrote. Understand it's a very long journey, so it happens that you keep on writing and rewriting the same stuff again. That will be just a pure wastage of your energy. So you have to make sure that you have to abide by this. Then last but important, fifth step is continue to question. Now maintain a questioning habit in you. So you can always make sure that you are not writing something which is illogical. You should be able to satisfy your own questions. Only then you are going to able to convince others. Always have a critical mindset, so you can be your best critic and you can come out with the best quality of your write-up. Then, how strongly are you convinced about your work? You keep on asking yourself at every step of your write-up. If you are able to convince yourself, only then others will get convinced. Explain your reasoning, forming a strong argument. Whenever you are making statement, always back it up with lot of proofs, lot of proper data, concrete data. Only then your statements will become concrete. Like India is a secular nation. Without any where you read this reference that India is a secular nation. What is the concept is secular is called, and how can India fall into the category of being a secular? You have to give proper reference to it, definitions of other people, arguments of other people, and based on that you can have the last few sentences in that paragraph as your own argument. Do not just refer only others' work repetitively. After referring others' work, what do you say? That's more important. So always make sure you do some strong arguments with a lot of proofs. Bibliography contains plenty of references. That's why, as you go, start writing the bibliography from day one itself. Create a separate page in which you are going to write the references of all the resources, those you are reading out, signing out. May possible some of the information you will never use. You are just reading for the sake of reading. But it is okay. In bibliography, you can keep it added. If you, in case, miss any of the bit of information without any references, then that will immediately will get caught into plagiarism, and then your plagiarism ratio will go high. And if you have above 7% or 10% of plagiarism, it depends on the again university, how much university recommends a percentage of plagiarism, then your thesis submission will not be allowed. You again have to rework on the whole content. You have to keep finding where and because of what it has happened, and it's very difficult. It is like finding a needle in the forest, because you have a huge 300 pages written with lot of concept, lot of arguments, a lot of referencing added into it, and you have a long bibliography, and it becomes very difficult to find out which one is the part which you missed from the referencing. Definitely, there are some really good standard plagiarism softwares which give you various color marks, color codes on the places, for the places which come and get caught under plagiarism. So you can trace those back. Some good softwares also give you the ideas about even which from which resource they come to know about this particular information. So you can cite directly that particular source, or you can paraphrase it out. So there are some standard softwares also which are there in market, or you can use AI also to make your write-up plagiarism free by paraphrasing it out, or by referencing it out, or using proper citation, giving proper definitions, using correct kind of formattings and style sheets and so on. There are also good softwares like Mendeley, which you can use for crafting a good bibliography according to the style sheet that is mentioned. Now, last but important step here is well-structured, coherent, and polished thesis. Reassessing the logic of the whole piece. Understand? It's a 300 pages. So if somebody asks you to read it, you will definitely feel, oh my God, it's very long, it's very huge. And I'm doing it since last 4 years, last 5 years, and then I'm reading it again and again, that content. Now, how can I read it from day one? My PhD guide also told me the same thing that I'm going to tell you. If you feel bored of writing your own research work, understand it's not convincing. Others are going to get bored then. If your own research does not elevate you, influence you, motivate you, then your work is not going to motivate others also. So you have to take interest in your work. You have to make sure your work has become interesting also. At the same time, whatever you have started with and where have you ended, this whole sequence, whole thing has to be in sequence one by one, and should have one stretch of the logic. It should be the whole piece and not should be cut into pieces and bits. Otherwise, that will not be coherent and it will not lead to any conclusion. The reader will also get disoriented. then you should spend sufficient amount of time in proofreading and checking, because these are some final steps before submitting your final thesis, and which you should never avoid, because that proof checking is highly essential. Because what happens many times, you may not feel that it has gone wrong, but when you start reading it in sequence, you find mistakes. So you can proof check it with the help of various softwares like Grammarly. At the same time, I recommend all of you to make sure that you should take a printout of every chapter as you finish and do the proof checking on the piece of paper. Many times, online software does not give you any kind of recommendations to go in your error, but you saw that when it is there on a text format in the piece of a page. It has happened with me also. Initially, I also did not believe like that, but I have seen it happening in reality. So these efforts are highly essential. Even before you submit the final thesis, have a rough copy in the spinal bounding where you can do the whole proof checking, word by word, line by line, read it carefully, assess it carefully, spend at least a long time there before you submit. Though it's a month, it doesn't matter. Though it's 15 days, 20 days, doesn't matter. You make sure that when it is your own proof checking, please, you can always rely on yourself 100%. You can't rely on others. You can't be sure that others have read it thoroughly, but you have the surety about yourself. So you better spend time with yourself. Main argument is supported by relevant citations. So you have to make sure that you cite every information. Contribution of the most influential theorist and the research has to be there in literature review. Throughout your write-up, there should be a strong theoretical background, and it should be reflected in the bibliography itself. Now, this is how is the structure of the oral standard format of the thesis. Various pages, like this is how is the title page. Now, again, I recommend refer to the handbook and check out what are their recommendation about these initial pages like certification, declaration, and front first page and so on. If it's not added into it, then refer to the previous works. Then acknowledgement is a very beautiful chance given to us to thank all those who are directly or indirectly connected and motivated, helped us in order to fulfill and finish this lengthy work, Herculean task, right? So it's a nice, space where we must thank all these people. For example, like formal official thanking has to be to the supervisor, the head of the department, then the participants in your research, your friends, family who has supported you. Okay, abstract is very important, part of the thesis, as it is a reflection, it is a mirror of what work you have done. So these are some very must-have things in your abstract. So generally, abstract for research paper is 150 to 300 words, but for thesis, it can be a page long, because this is a very lengthy work of 300 and so pages. So abstract includes the main topic and aim of your research, which methodology you have used. You also have to summarize the major results of your study, and you have to state conclusion. Research various chapterizations, subheadings, or along with page numbers. Then comes various list of figures and tables. If you have used abbreviations, make a separate section, give the title abbreviations, and list it out. For example, let's say on page number 3, you have used IE, Indian English, and the short form of it in bracket you have said henceforth IE. And then after several pages, if the reader comes at page number 58 and suddenly find IE and does not remember what it is, then the person has to go back and keep on finding on every page where the long form has been given. So this person can directly go on the page of abbreviation and check it out there itself, that what is the meaning of I. In the same way, glossary, if your thesis is very technical, you are using technical jargons, then you better give the meanings of those, or glossary of collection of all items. Same is with the figures and tables those you are going to use. So this particular section is highly important. Then comes introductory part, in which you have a topic, purpose, and relevance. So establish your research topic, necessary background information that you can contextualize your work, narrow down to focus and define your scope of research. Thereafter, you can even state your objectives here. You can even talk about overall structure. Literature review is very important part that I already have addressed, in which you have to refer to various scholarly works of previous people, how those works are related to you, and what are the gaps which you are going to address in your book. Then comes very important part is methodology. So according to your type of research and your stream, methodology change. For example, qualitative, you are dealing with numbers right now. Quantitative deals with the text or discourse analysis. Then comes experimental, ethnographic. If your study is related to some tribe or something, then that goes under ethnographic. If you are done interviews, surveys, methods, this kind of methods of data collection, then that goes under techniques and methods. So in this way, you have to highlight and identify various kinds of tools and materials and methodologies those you are going to use in your research and mention it under the methodology. Then comes research and findings, in which you have to talk about major problem statement, hypothesis, and how you are going to address your question. For example, let's say for qualitative method like in-depth interviews, the presentation of the data will often be woven together with discussion and analysis. While in quantitative experimental research, the results should be presented separately before you discuss their. If you are unsure, consult it with your supervisor and look at the sample thesis altogether. Then is discussion section. Understand there are different kind of titles to various chapters. These are some general ideas I'm giving. So some may talk about this as a findings or result section or even conclusion section. It depends. So under the discussion, you talk about scope and limitation, various arguments that you want to make here. And then in conclusion, you can add about the findings of your research. So these are some general points. References are highly important. I have already talked about it. Kindly find which style sheet is important for you and abide by that throughout your research. And then comes appendices. For example, if you use some photographs as a proof or interviews or a questionnaire or paper, then you have to add all of those, the transcripts, at the end of your thesis. Then these are certain mistakes that every person should avoid, every research person. Do not avoid writing plenary pages like declaration, certification, and so on. Abstract of your thesis should.
Participants, a resource person will be joining with us in a very short time. Kindly hold on. Ma'am, you are in mute mode, ma'am.
Okay, sorry. I think I had lost the network. Okay. So what was the last point you saw? Because I want the slideshow, so I couldn't realize that. Okay, so I am just revising this particular page. Okay. So the thesis writing itself has certain things that you should not miss the preliminary pages because they are highly important to be completed. Okay. For example, certification or let's say acknowledgement and so on. An abstract should not be lengthier than recommended. It should be hardly 1 page. Thereafter, there should not be any formatting or grammatical errors in your thesis that creates a very wrong impression and wrong conclusions also. At the same time, if your thesis is containing words in the proposal stage, for example, In proposal stage, we propose a topic. So it is written in, let's say, future tense that I will be doing this. But once you write a thesis, your work is completed, your research is completed. So it has to be written in the past form, past tense itself. At the same time, there should not be any academic integrity violation. You should follow all the ethics and protocols of the study. Avoid grammatical errors, jargons, unclear paragraph organization, and other writing common blunders. So these are some very important things here that I would like to recommend. So this is from my side. Over to you.